which do you think is the role of a designer for an ecological, sustainable future?
I think there are many roles a designer can play. Design has always been related to a kind of has always been something of a communication, of translating in a way the complexity of our daily life into something that we can deal with. So some designers do that by designing real objects. Others are doing that in terms of graphics or media. So I think really the role of the designer is an intermediate between, I don't know, a problem and a solution, but also maybe between a commissioner and the end user. There are really many different roles. I think the responsibility of a designer and the fact that we are talking about sustainability and ecological issues, this I really think is not new, has always been like this. Now we talk about it more, and it's good, we should talk about it, but I think good design has always been treating these issues very carefully and with a lot of responsibility. So I think that's really fundamental to what design is.
How are you determined by the new language, new trends, new materials, new fashions?
Many ways of treating it. To tell you my own way of, I think I enjoy living in this world today, with all its problems, with all its chaos, with all its fascination. And I think the way I get influenced for my own work is just by a very natural reception of all that is going on around me. And what I love most, what I'm most fascinated in is the real life and the reality of all the, even the things that sometimes seem so obvious and so real that we don't look at them in that with the kind of with the fascination. Sometimes it's easier to just take off in just looking at or envisaging, dreaming of things that are not reality. I think that for me the beauty is really in the things that are around us, and they are clearly everyday life, anonymous things, but also of course the great creations of other designers, colleague designers, of music, of literature, theater, cinema. All these things are of course important, and I think you can. What we call inspiration is just something that I think you have your own interests, and they change constantly. And you go along with them, and you store them somewhere in the back of your mind. It's not that there is a one-to-one inspiration. I see something, and I use it for something. It's not that. I think it's really. I think it's more like I don't know, taking a lot of information and storing it somehow, and using it as knowledge, as experience.
Do you think everyone can be a designer, or what has to have a good designer to be really good, in your opinion?
It's interesting to say everyone can be a designer. Joseph Beuys, the artist, said everyone is an artist, and of course there was a strong point he made. It's a tricky one. Well, let's say. Yes, in theory, everyone can be a designer. However, I think that the practice of a designer today has become extremely professional. That doesn't mean that you have to have a big office. It doesn't mean that you have to have technical skills of any sort. But it's a serious job, serious work. It's not something you just do on the side. So I think it's really, you need a full commitment and a passion for it. It is in the end hard work and serious, I think the best designers are those who really make life and work one. So thinking about design is really part of their whole life attitude. Those to me are the best designers.
How do you feel about the relation between design and utopias, like a way to get a better world for most people, and the real work of companies? I mean, that design at the least is focused to sell something, yeah, to be in the market. How do you think this can combine in this time, this contemporary world?
Another difficult question. I think the utopia is it's really, there's a fascination about this idea of utopia. Whenever historically we can, we see, what happened to the great utopias. Most of them failed, and I think they failed in becoming reality. Because probably the step was too big to make, and the vision was too great a vision. I think they failed in the reality, and they succeeded in staying still in our minds. The fact that we keep on talking about utopias and making reference to the great utopias there were, I think that's already a success. The question of how much utopia can be kind of become part of the reality of industrial production of commerce, I think it can eventually, and probably it's more in retrospect we realize that quite a lot of things. Think of some of the technological products, like I'm talking about real products that we have today. They are almost beyond any utopia we could have had, but they are really commercial products. So I think somehow it's possible, but I think at the same time, when these particular products were designed, it was not about utopia. It was, still then, it's about much more of the kind of course, an idea that goes beyond what we already have, what we already know, tries to push boundaries, go further, but clearly linked to the possibilities at hand, to the kind of reality. And that's why I call myself an industrial designer. I see most of I see a great potential there, just even within the constraints of industry, of what is producible, marketable, and so on. I see the potential just because there are the constraints. Because of that, we push. We want to go beyond. So the kind of this idea of a carte blanche, of endless possibilities, I think always goes against the creativity. I think that means, no friction, no debate, no obstacles, and it's always I think that the real creativity is produced in actually to push out the boundaries, or to overcome problems, to overcome limitations.